people are giving into hopelessness, because hopelessness is this idea that you are stuck, that life will not get better. And when you give into that belief system that we are stuck, life will not get better, then what's the point of going on? It feels like you ended the video game.
I've learned so much over this first year of podcasting, and I wanted to share with you guys the 10 most life-changing lessons that I've learned this year. So I created a document, and it's on my website. What you're going to do, you're going to go there. It's going to be 10 life-changing lessons. Click on that button. It'll ask for your email address so I can email it to you. Sign up for it, because these life lessons radically changed the way I viewed my life and the way I started living. It helped me to get better in the areas that I've so desperately wanted to see progress and growth in. And because I know they helped me, I really believe that they will help you. And I wanted this to be a gift for you guys. So I really hope you enjoy this gift, and go to the website, thewholepersonpodcast.com to get it. It's free. And I hope you guys enjoy and learn as much as I did from it. We have an awesome guest, full of life, full of spirit, full of joy. And he is one of the most entertaining people to watch I've seen in a very long time. His name is Jason David. And Jason has an incredible story. Jason overcame stage 4 tongue cancer and lost 80% of his tongue. He was told he might never talk or sing again. Now he uses his voice to inspire and encourage people all around the world through music, through inspirational videos, through motivational speaking. And I'm just so excited to have him here on the show today. Jason, welcome to the Whole Person Podcast. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me, Evan. Yeah, it's been an adventure. It's been a journey that I never ever saw coming, never expected this, but making the most of it, and I'm excited to be here today. Even just to actually be alive today, that's one thing. But secondly, to be on your podcast. So,
well, it's unique because we're in this time in the season of COVID, and people are freaked out of their mind. Hotlines for suicide are up 900% right now. And my question to you is, you faced death. So my question is, I guess now in this season, is it easier going through a season where there's extreme difficulty because you looked and stared and had to come to terms with the possibility of death before?
That's a great question. Because when I'd gone through, I think, something like 15 surgeries, and before I even got to the 8 weeks of chemo and 35 rounds of radiation, all of that, there was this one moment where the surgery was like a 15-hour surgery. It was the most brutal one. That's where they removed, because cancer came back twice. So this was the last time where they removed the chunk of my tongue, where now it was 80%. And when I woke up, I had all these tubes coming out of me, had so much pain. They had used my arm right here, which is a scar kind of. They created a new tongue with that. And that's what's in my mouth. So some people, they make that joke of having your foot in your mouth. I literally have my arm in my mouth. And
can I see it real quick?
My arm or my tongue?
Your tongue.
It's hard.
I see it.
You can kind of, I can't stick my tongue out. I can't.
You don't have the muscle, yeah.
I don't, exactly. So, but because of that, my tongue was crazy swollen. So I couldn't breathe through my mouth. And so they put a trach. You can kind of see I have a scar, but my body was rejecting that. So it was forming a bunch of mucus. So I couldn't breathe through my neck. And then they had a feeding tube up my nose, and in the ICU and everything being rushed, it got pulled on and started some nose bleeding. So then I couldn't breathe through my mouth, and blood had plugged up my nose and mucus covered up my throat. So every 5 minutes, I couldn't breathe anywhere. And I would start suffocating, and then they'd have to come in and put a vacuum down my throat and suck the mucus out. And it was just every 5 minutes, just traumatic. My heart rate would just go up, so much pain. And so then they would give me pain medicine to, to help with the pain. And it wasn't being very effective. And then the other thing that pain medicine does, since we're being very open and transparent with you, it blocks you up so you can't use the restroom. So then they give you Senna to help you go. But in the rush of everything, and these doctors saved my life, so there's nothing against them, but in the rush, mistakes happen. And one nurse ended her shift by giving me Senna, and the next nurse came in and started her shift by giving me Senna. So there was this moment where I'm literally lying on the bathroom floor. Literally, I'm sitting in my own crap. I'm literally sitting in my own waste. Vomit, blood, mucus, poop. I mean, almost everything that can come out of a human body, just sitting in it, screaming in so much pain. And in this moment is the most degrading, the most unhuman, most brutal moment I've ever experienced in my life. All that was playing in my head was the doctor told me that it'll only get worse for the next 5 days. And I was like, how does it get worse than this? I can't even take another 5 minutes of this. And I hadn't slept in 3 days because of the beeping and the pain. So I'm not even mentally thinking straight. And all I'm thinking is simple math. I need the pain to stop. Pain medicine's not making it stop. So how do you make pain stop? Well, you have to stop. You have to die. That's the only way. And that's really what's happening right now is people are giving into hopelessness, because hopelessness is this idea that you are stuck, that life will not get better. And when you give into that belief system that we are stuck, life will not get better, then what's the point of going on? It feels like you ended the video game. And I might as well just pull the cord out of the video game because I can't beat this game. And so I know that feeling. And so that night I got my phone out and I typed easy ways to die because I wanted to kill myself. But I was tired of being poked. I had so many needles in me. I was so tired of being poked. So I was like, how do I kill myself without hurting myself? Which I don't even know how you do that. Like, how do I kill myself without it being another painful experience?
Well, you couldn't swallow anything.
Yeah, I can't swallow anything. There's very limiting things that you can do. And so I'm looking around the room, looking around like, what can I use? What can I do? And my wife, she came in that night, and we can talk more about that later. And she ends up being a part of the story that saves my life. But before I get to that point, it's that feeling that a lot of people are giving into right now is hopelessness of thinking like, we are stuck, which is why in my when I started doing this My Tribe thing, my first episode was called In the Beginning, and it was all about this idea that we are not stuck. Because when you look at the Bible, and in the time when it was being written and when it was coming out, you were surrounded by religions that believed that life was a loop, that you've got your summer, fall, winter, spring. You are born a bald, ugly baby, and you die a bald, ugly baby. To them, life was a loop and a circle. We were stuck. If you're born a slave, you will die a slave. Fall eventually becomes fall again. Winter becomes winter again. Which one came first? Which one started? To them, we were stuck, and that meant you were also stuck in your class. You were stuck in your social system. You were stuck in your economic level. If you were born a king, you will die a king. If you were born a slave, you will die a slave. And in the midst of everyone believing that they are stuck, that life is meaningless and hopeless, the Bible says in the beginning, which is crazy because like a circle has no beginning and has no end. And so what the Bible is saying is we're not part of a circle. We are part of a linear story, a linear line that's going forward. We're part of God's story, his story, his story. And that was like revolutionary back then. And so I wanted to start with that message because I was seeing the hopelessness that was getting spread of people feeling like, oh, we are stuck. Like life doesn't get any better than this. And when you give into that, you give into depression and suicidal thoughts. And so that's kind of become my message now. It's like, we are not stuck. Every storms don't last forever. One of my favorite verses, it's completely out of context, but it says, and it came to pass. And it goes on to say, and it came to pass that Caesar Augustus did some taxes, but and it came to pass. And I like to pause it right there, because everything does come to pass. Everything does. Like, the storm always eventually ends, and you can't keep your eyes on the moment, which is what I was doing, right? I was not being able to see a year from then. I can only look at where I was at in that moment. And we have to realize, like, COVID-19 is not forever, but it feels like it. And the sickness and the disease is not forever. And the turmoil in your relationships is not forever. Though it feels in the moment, you can only see what's around you. You have to get your head up. You have to get your eyes up and look past it and know that all things work together for the good of those who love the Lord, that there will be a testimony out of this. And now I'm getting to live on that side of the fence. Mm-hmm. But I almost didn't even let myself live to get to that side.
Tell us the story about your wife coming in. You indicated that, and
yeah,
I'd like to hear it.
Yeah, it's kind of like the happy ending. So I don't know if you want to deal with the good part yet, but
okay. Well then we'll wait till towards the end.
All right. So spoiler alert, I'm still alive. So
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's awesome. So what was your life like pre-cancer?
Yeah, very heavy into music, singing. I had been in so many different bands. I've been in a boy band, punk rock band. They were all Christian, but like boy band, punk rock band, hip hop group. I did a lot of rapping. That was the main one. And we had like albums on iTunes, and we had done tours. And so like music was my life. I'd been part of a group called Dare Be Dreamers. We went viral for a little bit. So like music was everything I did. But then I was also a preacher. I was a youth pastor, and I would speak at churches. And I was a worship leader, and I played piano. So singer, speaker, and piano player. That was kind of what, like, in a sense, defined me, who I was.
Gotcha.
And then I get cancer, and then I'm told, you're not going to speak again. If you do, it will be like, no one will be able to understand.
It'll be guttural sounds.
Yeah, it'll be just like gibberish. And because of that, you're not going to sing again. And also at the time, I couldn't move my hand, my fingers, my arm because of this. And so
and he's referring to where they took the skin to help create the new tone.
Yeah, so they took a vein from here to here, and they took all of this, and so my arm was it was actually dying. The skin was dying. It wasn't regrafting properly. They took skin from my leg to regraft it, and it wasn't working. And so I might just have to be right-handed and not use my left hand. So there was this moment where I'm like, okay, so I can't preach, I can't sing, I can't play piano. So like, why am I here, God? Like, what do you want me to do? Like, what am I supposed to do? I'm trying to work for you, right? And sometimes we get so caught up in working for God and not working with God, or just even just not working and just being in a relationship with God. Because the truth is, we find our value and our worth in what we do. And even if they're noble causes, we define who we are by what we do for God rather than the relationship we have with God. And so I had to try to like come to grips with that fact of like, well, if I'm useless for God, does being useless make me worthless? Do I still have value? And I think everyone should really have to struggle with that question of like, what if your podcast got taken away? What if a preacher couldn't preach anymore? What if, like, when you take away what you do for God, do you still see your value in his kingdom? Because I don't believe that God looks at us and sees us as chess pieces and like, oh, well, I like this guy because he's a preacher for me. And this guy, it's like, I think God can use a donkey, which is my last episode I just talked about. God can use a donkey. So I think God cares more about the relationship we have with him, not on what we do for him. Even though he calls us to do great things, it's like we can't find our identity in what we do. So that was like a big identity crisis for me. So yeah, before cancer, man, I was doing like music and tours and preaching, and I was doing youth conferences, and and all this stuff. And then I felt like I lost all of that. And
So when that happened, did anyone say, "Oh, good, he's not going to talk anymore"?
not to my face, they didn't. No, actually, you know what's funny is, so people don't know what to say to people who are in a crisis or in a tragedy. So typically, people quote scripture and people send you bumper sticker type slogans, and it just made me more angry, So like people were sending me cards and which was really kind of them. But like one of them said like, this is all part of God's plan. And I was like, well, I hate that plan. I didn't ask for this plan. And I actually got like really asked my wife, take down that card. I hate that card. Because in that moment, like he's like, I don't want to hear that right now. I don't want to hear, it's like, let me live it. And eventually I'll look back and be like, oh, I see how God turned this around for good. But right now I do not want to hear that God's okay with this. Because that's what you're saying. You're telling me that God's okay with my suffering and my pain. And I'm not okay with this. And, I had other people, and they're really kind-hearted, and they're just trying to say something uplifting. But one person looked at me and he said, no pain is wasted. And I was like, I don't know, man. They've been doing some stuff to me, and then realizing they didn't need to do that to me. So I'm pretty sure some pain is wasted. And not even from a selfish point of view, but when you're in a hospital surrounded by other kids who are dying, and like you see the suffering of this world, you're like, I think some pain is wasted. I think whether it's because of sin running rampant, it's a waste. Like, I don't think every pain, I don't think when you stub your toe, that was part of some great God's plan. I think you just weren't looking and you stubbed your toe. And like, there's just pain happens, and there's horrific things that happen in this world. And we try to come up with a bumper sticker slogan to encourage someone. But for me in that moment, that was the last thing I wanted to hear. And also I was in a really bad mood. So because of everything that was going on.
I want to share a story with you.
Yeah.
So back in 2013, my wife gave birth to a premature stillborn daughter. Her name was Michaela. She was 21 weeks old, or in the womb, 21 weeks.
Yeah.
And after we had gone through all the heartache and giving her body up, I got a phone call from the funeral home saying that they don't have her body, and they tried to pick the body up. And they asked me to reach out to the hospital. So I called the hospital, and I talked to this one evil nurse. And she's like, no, we gave her body to so-and-so, and, basically they lost her body. They lost my daughter's deceased body. And not only did that happen, but then she didn't want to talk to me about it for us to try to figure out how to find where her body was located. Because how do I know you are actually her father? How do I know? And I was sitting next to my mom on the couch. And I'm not proud of this moment, but there were some really evil thoughts going on in my mind. Because I can show up and I can make you find her body.
Yeah.
That was my determination. If you're going to treat me this way, I will show up and I will make you find her body for me.
Yeah.
And I think my mom could kind of notice some of the thoughts that were in my head at that moment.
Yeah.
Because my daughter's funeral was essentially less than 48 hours away. And the funeral home needed her body. And without that, we wouldn't have been able to have a funeral.
Yeah.
And so my mom just very calmly looks at me and says the most inappropriate thing, most offensive thing someone could ever say to someone in my position.
Mm-hmm.
And it brought me back. It was so hilarious. She puts her hand on my leg. She goes, Evan, please don't tell me your daughter's one of those people. And I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, late to their own funeral.
Oh.
And I busted up laughing. It was so inappropriate that it made it so funny. And I feel like sometimes when we go through pain, you really have to know the person to be able
Yes.
to get away with something like that. But I think you're absolutely right. Like, all the Christianese terms and all the, pain is weakness leaving your body, or, God has his plan and God will work. Like,
Yeah.
I just want to jugular punch someone,
Or
And
like the one where they say, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. And
yeah,
I'm like, no, what doesn't kill you makes you want to kill yourself. Like
sometimes, yeah.
it's like, and those things in the moment. I mean, but I understand the heart behind it. Is people don't know
Yeah.
what to say, but which will lead to what my wife did. Is she knew she didn't have the words to say, so she didn't say anything. But what she did do ended up saving my life. And I think people need to understand, like in those moments, it's not about what you say.
I think you're 100% right, because there's nothing that
Mm.
anyone said to me that would make me feel better. And it was, I mean, except my mom. Like,
Yeah.
it was really funny.
Is she a comedian? Is that? I mean, that's a
No,
really well constructed joke.
it really was, in a very decrepit way. It was amazing, but it brought me back from extreme evil thoughts.
Yeah.
And anyway, so through this process for you, man, did you ever blame God for what was happening to you?
That's a great question. So I never went there for blaming God for what was happening to me, because for me it was like, I know some people go through pain and they're like, why me? And I never understood that, because what you're saying is, why, like, I'm okay if other people have cancer, but why do I have it? Which I'm like, what? That seems kind of selfish. For me, it was like, why, not why me, but why anybody? Like, why cancer? Why kids having cancer? Like, it opens your eyes up to suffering on an extreme level. And so it wasn't like, why am I going through this? It's why does anyone have to go through this? So it's almost a bigger, harder question to answer rather than why me. But I mean, why the world?
Yeah.
It seems like, so it was more like wrestling with that. So not blaming God, but definitely having some like actual prayer time of like, yo, so tell me how you're wise again.
Yeah.
Tell me how
And
you're not like, yeah. And so you have some real honest, heartbreaking conversations with God.
I think too, when I was in the moment of when we lost our daughter, I was on the couch, and I'm kind of right there with you. I didn't blame God, because I knew God didn't create this. I know that we live in a fallen world, and I know that there is a Satan that comes to steal, kill, and destroy. I know God is a good God. Mm-hmm. But my question to God was, where's your love in all this? Because I just don't see it.
Yeah.
And for you, I'm sure you probably had some of the same questions. Did you ever ask God, where's your love in all this? And did he ever show it to you?
For me, it was, you go your whole life being a Christian, raised by pastors. I'm a pastor's kid.
You're a PK.
I'm a PK. And then you come to this moment where it's like, I don't feel you. I don't see you. I don't hear your voice. So it's like, if there's ever a time I needed you, God, it's kind of right now. And I don't feel anything. I don't feel your presence. I feel abandoned. I feel alone. And this is where having been a preacher my whole life helps, because I could sit there and just argue with my own brain back and forth. Like, I knew everything that a preacher would tell me. So I'd be like, what this? And then my preacher side would be like, yeah, but this verse, blah, blah. And I'd be like, yeah, but what about this? I didn't even need God in the conversation. I could just argue with myself.
I can see you with 3 heads on your shoulder.
Yeah, it's like, I could argue, I could point out all the loopholes, and then I could try to explain those loopholes away. But for me, it was like, I don't feel God in this moment. And it'd be really nice to feel you, because I'm feeling pretty dark and alone. But then my preacher side was like, yeah, but what about Moses when he's standing on the edge of the Red Sea and Pharaoh's army is coming behind him, and he's stuck between his future and his past? He can't step forward because there's a Red Sea. He can't go back because that's slavery. And in that moment, the people of Israel come to him and they're like, hey, like, you want us to die in the desert? Like, you're a terrible leader. What's going on? And then he tells them this great speech of like, God's going to be here. God's going to provide. And then he ends the speech by saying, so just shut up. He literally, if you read it, he says, so shut your mouth. Just keep your mouth shut. God's going to provide. In the next verse, God says, why are you crying out to me? So there's almost like this moment missing there, because he goes from this great speech, and the next moment God says, why are you screaming at me? So like, basically he says, hey, God's with us, have no fear. Just stop talking. It's going to be okay. Help! Like he goes like just screaming to God, and God's like, dude, what is in your hand? He's got that staff, and he's like, okay, then like use that. So he does. And then in the Hollywood movies, as soon as he uses it, it's immediate, boom, explosion. The wire blows up and starts parting, and it's this great special effects. Yet the Bible doesn't say that. The Bible doesn't say anything immediate happened. It says that an east wind began to blow. And it says it happened all night long, that it took all night for the miracle to happen. Potentially, he had to go to bed that night having not seen the miracle. And what's interesting about the east wind is they're standing on the west side. So potentially could be saying that the Red Sea parted from the opposite side, which is like, God, you're doing the miracle wrong. Like I needed the water to part right here. Why are you parting it on the opposite side? I can't even see that it's parting. I have to trust and believe that you're moving behind the scenes, but I don't see you. I don't feel you. It feels like you just abandoned us. You got us out of slavery, and now we're stuck here going to die. And the Red Sea is parting, and it feels like God's taking his time, and he's doing the miracle backwards. And yet, when you think about it, a couple of things. First of all, if God had parted the Red Sea right at their feet, these are a bunch of scared, anxious people. As soon as the Red Sea starts parting, as soon as they see it, they're running in. And sometimes, we rush our miracle, right? We rush into things, and the ground would still be muddy. The ground would not be dry, and they would get stuck in it. And so it's almost like in God's wisdom parting it from the other side. And then by the time it's all parted, it's dry and they can walk on it. And then also when you look at the way it was parted, that way when the Egyptian army comes after them, it'll hit them before it hits. It's hard to do it without like a map. But basically, like, you begin to see God's wisdom and how he did it his way. But if you're from Moses' perspective, you kind of like, God, you told me, right? Like, I heard you, right? You said to bring the people here. You said to point my stick, and I'm pointing it. I'm pointing at the water. I'm saying the magic words, and nothing is happening. I'm praying, and I don't see God move. I've been praying for my husband for years, and he's still not saved. I'm praying for my kids, but they seem to be getting worse. I've been praying. My grandma never got healed. She died. Like, people out there know what it feels like to feel like God is there. And I have a confession to make. When years ago, my wife and we got kicked out of a Barnes & Noble. That's my confession. Because we were playing Where's Waldo? And in the kids section without paying for the book, because I always thought Barnes & Noble was a library pretty much. Just don't take the book out of the store. But it's not. They want your money, guys. So we were playing Where's Waldo. We got kicked out of the store because we were in the kids section playing for free. So I went online. I started I found this website that has a Where's Waldo picture. So I printed it out, and I was really excited. And I looked and looked and looked for 2 weeks. Evan, 2 weeks. Could not find Waldo. And I was good at Waldo, too. Could not find him. I showed my wife, like, I cannot find Waldo. Turns out this website takes Waldo pictures and photoshops Waldo out of the picture so that people print the sheet out and cannot find it. And it's like, that's how I feel about God sometimes. Like, God got photoshopped out of my life. Like, I'm looking around. I do not see God. I do not feel God. And I'm trying to see how God is in all this, but it feels like someone photoshopped him out of the picture. And so in that moment of debating with myself, I could be like, God, I don't feel you. And then the other side of my brain is like, yeah, but Moses felt the same way. And like, I could go back and forth and kind of come into that point of like, I'm just going to trust. I'm just going to hope that you're on the opposite side of the Red Sea doing something. I don't see it. I don't feel it. But that's where trust and faith can actually come into play. So let's just hope this works out. And then sometimes all you can do is just take the next step, do the next right thing.
Yeah. As you were sharing that, It actually made me think of Jesus on the cross when he goes, my God, why have you forsaken me? In
Yeah.
that moment where even Jesus
Mm-hmm.
experienced distance from God.
Yeah.
And if Jesus experienced that, who am I to not experience it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know. That's just a thought that popped up in
That's
my
good.
mind. What were some of the signs that you noticed occurring in your body that something was wrong?
Yeah. Well, big lump on my tongue. Um, and it kept getting bigger and bigger and worse and worse. And of course, I went and got a biopsy, and they said they think it's cancer. And then I was like, I didn't know how to process that, so I just kind of ignored it and was like, it'll go away. And then all of a sudden, I started getting rashes on my body, and then everything came to a head one day when I had like my body just shut down. I like fell out of the shower. I was almost having like a seizure. I lost all heat in my body. And I just got like cold and cold. We're in like San Diego. It's not cold. And I'm like freezing and shaking and just pains coursing through my body. And they call an ambulance. And I'm in the hospital for 13 days. And they have to drill a hole in my hip. So now I'm in a wheelchair. And I just like, it was just my whole body just started shutting down. Just like rashes and getting stuck. My back was getting stuck and like muscles were spazzing. And basically my body just being like, we're just going to stop working for you. And and then, of course, in my tongue getting so bad that it was hard to understand what I was saying and I couldn't eat anymore. I was having to just drink stuff. So it just kind of just kept degrading.
What were some of the major lessons through this process of fighting for your life that kind of you learned, maybe
Mm-hmm.
looking back? Because sometimes when you're in it, you just thought, oh, this is a great life lesson.
Yeah.
What were some of those, oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
moments that really like, this is kind of a big lesson that I learned?
Yeah. The main thing, and it sounds cliche, but it's, it is what it is just like in the moment, you don't give up, even when you don't have a good enough argument of why you shouldn't give up, even when logically you don't have a why. I think, as humans, we always want a why. We need an explanation. I'm going to do this because of this. And it's being like, don't give up. And then being like, well, why should I not give up? I'm like, well, I don't have a reason because, you might not speak or sing again or play piano again. I don't really have a good enough reason why you shouldn't give up. But just don't, which is like the most compelling argument. But that's all I had, was this idea of like, I don't know why I'm not going to give up. Maybe I'll just not give up because I have a bunch of youth group kids who are watching me and I don't want to commit suicide and then them commit suicide. I don't want their parents to be mad at me because I committed suicide. Like I was trying to come up with like a good enough reason why I shouldn't commit suicide. And the only reason I had was like, I just know that one day I will look back at this. Like one day, a day will come where this is not forever. That I'm not stuck in an infinite loop. That there will be a day where I look back at this. And the longer I live, the shorter this trial will have been. Mm-hmm. And because there's stuff we went through as kids that was horrific. And now you look back and it's like a blink, and it's like just trusting and believing that one day I'll look back at this and it won't hurt as much as it hurts now.
When did that day happen? That moment happen for you? Because I'm assuming it might have already happened.
I'm still living in that trust of it will hurt less and less. I will tell you that it does hurt less and less. But sometimes people come to me and they're like, I bet you wouldn't trade what you went through for anything. I bet the lessons you've learned and the man you've become, and look, you've got My Tribe and your song went viral. I bet it was so worth it. And I'm like, nah. If I could go back and someone's like, hey, so now that you've gone through what you've gone through, and you could choose not to have cancer or to have cancer and then look at what's happening, I'd be like, I'll take no cancer. Like, I'll still choose no cancer. I think sometimes we make people feel like they have to justify what they went through and say, well, if I didn't go through that, then I wouldn't be who I am today. And we make people have to like almost be okay with what happens. And I don't think it's okay what happens to you. I don't think the pain is okay. I think God transforms it. I think God does miracles with what's gone on. I think he can take what you've gone through and use it to reach people and bless people, but it doesn't mean that what you went through was okay. The divorce or the rape or whatever you've gone through, the domestic abuse, like that wasn't okay. You don't have to justify what happened to you and say like, well, I'm glad it happened to me. You can find ways to rejoice, not because of it, but rejoice in what God's done with you since then, in spite of it. And so I'm in that place of like, now I look back and I do see how God has transformed it. I see the impact that the story has had on people literally all over the world. Did not expect that. Did not even want it at first. I didn't want to be the poster child for faith because I didn't feel like a great man of faith. I was going to kill myself. Why am I the poster child? Because I should be the poster child for almost killing yourself, And but now I look back and I'm like, well, God transformed that. I'm not ever going to say that God intended it to happen, that it was God's will for me to have cancer. I will never say that. But I can say I see how God transforms the most dark, despicable things in life. And if we let him, he can transform those into these beautiful testimonies and these story arcs that can bless the world. I'll never say that he caused it, but I will say that he took it and didn't let it become pointless or wasted in that sense, or let everything I went through be for nobody's benefit. And so I see a God who transforms, not a God who causes, but a God who brings healing after the aftermath. And
that is so good.
And can do with it what I could never do with it.
So you've gone through your surgeries. You're on the mends. Did you have to relearn how to talk a little bit? Like in your head, you know how to talk, but to make it actually happen, and then even eat. What was that process like? What was the frustrations, the lessons, the achievements in those moments?
Yeah. So I at first I couldn't make a sound. I could only kind of make noises through my neck, and then so for the longest time I had to just use my cell phone to like type like, here's what I'm trying to say. So my wife and I didn't have like an actual conversation for a year. So I couldn't talk for about a year. So I wrote everything out either on a paper or on a phone. The nurses appreciated that I could actually use my phone because they were used to working with patients who didn't do technology. I was like the youngest person in there with this type of cancer. So and then I couldn't eat, so I had a feeding tube. So for 9 months I had a feeding tube. I couldn't bite like a hamburger. And I would start going to daydreams where I was like daydreaming of myself eating a hamburger. And I'd wake up and I was chewing on my own fake tongue because I so badly wanted to bite something and I couldn't. So I went for about a year of not being able to speak or eat. I finally got and everything tasted gross. Everything. I started going to Denny's like every day because they kind of had like mashed potatoes and like their eggs are like not well cooked enough. So like I could actually like almost just swallow them, And I got so sick of Denny's eventually. But
Prop to Denny's.
I tried applesauce and it was the grossest thing. Like everything tasted just gross because the only at first all I had, the back of your tongue is I believe is your bitter taste. And that was the only part that worked. So the rest of my taste buds didn't work, so all I could taste was bitter. So everything was bitter. And then one day, after I got my feeding tube out, and I was kind of making jumbled noises, I decided to have some mint ice cream. And my life has never been the same. Like I had a sample of mint ice cream, and the flavors exploded in my mouth. And now, I'm not gonna lie, I have mint ice cream almost every night, and it's not healthy for me, but I love it. My taste buds have now returned to about 80 to 90%, and so I'm which is kind of crazy. So I'm able to like eat. Yeah.
In the tongue that was created, you have taste buds?
No, well, I'm not sure about that, but what it is so you actually have taste buds in your cheeks, sense of smell, and the back of your throat has taste buds, and so rather they believe those senses got heightened, so they had to work extra, and so now I'm at like 80 to 90%. I still have to be careful. I can't eat sharp objects like I can't eat chips and stuff. I can't eat rice because my tongue can't move, so rice gets stuck, below my tongue. So I still have to be somewhat careful, but for the most part, I'm eating what I want. I only eat something if I know it's going to taste good. Now I'm like really picky. I'm like, I didn't eat for a year, so now this meal is going to be like I eat like it's my last meal. So I only buy food that's like so flavorful. And then at first, I was like crying almost every day because I couldn't sing, I couldn't rap. I could barely speak. And I decided, all right, well, I'll just be a music composer. I'll just make instrumental music. I actually went up to LA for a little bit, was meeting with composers and trying to figure out, all right, let's just do music for movies, because then no one has to hear my embarrassing voice. Like I have this giant lisp. I sound like a child. I hated my voice. And even today, and I've been honest with people about this, I'm still embarrassed by how my voice sounds. But eventually, you just had to get past that and be like, you know what? I'm at the point where people can kind of understand me. And if they need to, they can put subtitles under me. But I'm going to start preaching again. I'm going to start singing again. And so I sang a song I had written, an original song called These Walls. And I sang it for my church as a thank you. It was my way of saying thank you because they were there with me. They sent nurses, they sent food. While I was at the house, they took care of me. So I was like, I'm gonna sing a song for them that I wrote as a thank you. And then that song got posted on Facebook, and then it like blew up, 6 million views, and all of a sudden it was in the news, and then it went on YouTube, and it just like blew up. And now the song is being sung every Sunday in literally countries all over the world. It's been translated in over like, I think it's at 25 languages it's been translated, and it hit the top 40 on iTunes, and like all this crazy stuff started happening because of it. And like it's been this wild journey, and in the midst of it, what people don't realize is I'm still embarrassed of my voice. Like I'm singing and I'm preaching, but it's not like, I think sometimes people think the miracle has to be complete before you can go out and change the world. Like you should look at someone who's out there doing it, and you're like, oh, their story arc is finished. They won. And now they're doing it. It's like, no, I'm still living in the PTSD. I have bad PTSD from everything that happened. I'm still living in the dark thoughts sometimes. I'm still living in the embarrassment of kind of being, every time I release a video, being like, oh, I just sound like a kid and I hate it. I sound like Sid the Sloth from Ice Age. And people even will comment on my videos.
Sorry, I never thought about that until you said it.
Yeah, they left without me. They do this every year. That's like a line from Ice Age. And then, of course, and the thing is, when you put stuff on Facebook and YouTube, people are very vocal. And so I'll have people comment, and they're sweet people, but to be like, oh, is that the guy from Ice Age? Is that Bob and Larry from VeggieTales? Like, it's like, no, I just have a list because of cancer, And so it's like, you don't have to wait to be perfect to go be used by God. Like people think like, and people get confused. They think, oh, God healed him. Well, God is healing me, but I'm still in the healing. Like, it's not like God put a bow, wrapped me up, and I was done. And now I'm here to tell you how everything worked out perfect. I'm still living the trials and living the miracle, and choosing to let God use me in spite of the voice that I'm embarrassed of. And I hope to encourage someone out there who thinks I need to wait till God finishes my story arc. I need to wait till the miracle is complete. I need to wait till I'm perfect to go be used by God. And it's like, God uses imperfect people. That's what the Bible is filled with. You don't need to wait for the miracle to be finished. Like, just move forward. Like God told Moses, just take the next step, move forward. So I'm still living in those moments of embarrassment and all of that, but choosing to move forward anyway, because I see that people are being blessed by it.
You know how Christians say something to you and you're like, and you're just like, just don't say that. Like, just don't.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're talking about that earlier. This might be one of those moments where I say something and you just don't say it. But I'm going to be 100% honest with you.
Yeah.
With your voice and watching the My Tribe videos,
yeah,
it makes it way more entertaining. I don't know why, but it really does. My kids, when they watch, like, they're more entertained. They watch it. They're more attentive for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Their attention is captured more. And as a parent, you know, who plays different stuff for them, like, I get to see their interactions. And so between your mannerisms, your creativity, and your voice, you've done extremely well despite the circumstances that you've been given.
Yeah.
And, you know, at the end of the day, I'm someone who kind of hates my voice too, because every time I call someone, they think I'm a woman. I have no idea why. But they're like, "Yes, ma'am." I'm like, "No, I'm a dude." Like, not a girl. But man, I think one reason why I like you and your voice so much is that despite all the hardship that you've gone through, it didn't stop you. It didn't stop your voice. It didn't stop your story.
Yeah.
And you've allowed it to continue. And despite the negativity, despite it not being perfect, despite it being flawed, you're saying, you know what? I can use what I have. All I have is this.
Yeah.
Just like Moses and the staff. Well, Moses, use
what's in your hand.
What's in your hand.
Yeah.
And for you, it's what's in your mouth.
Exactly.
And I so appreciate that about you. It makes me love you as a person even more. So I just wanted you to know that.
No, I appreciate that. It actually really helps because, you know, because other parents have said the same thing. I made a video about, because I like being transparent and honest with people. I don't like when pastors are like, come across like they don't struggle, because like, no one can relate to that, because the Bible is a bunch of characters who very much struggle. So I made a video about how I felt like Moses, you know, how he was ashamed of his stutter, and that I feel embarrassed in my voice, but I move forward anyway. And all of these parents were like commenting like, don't be embarrassed of your voice. My kids actually prefer your videos because of your voice. And I actually, that's not Christianese to me. That's really encouraging, because it's like, so like, and parents will say that. And it's encouraging because it's like, I thought my voice was a hindrance to what I was doing. Like, I thought my voice got in the way of what I was doing. And now to have parents actually say, no, because you sound like a cartoon character, my kids love it. And other parents think I am doing a voice. Like, they're like, hey, you're really good with voices. So I'm like, I'm not trying to do a voice. That's just me, you know? And so that's actually encouraging, because it's like God is taking what I thought was a hindrance and is actually making making people listen to the message even more so. And that just that's like, only God does that, right? It's like, how is this helping? Like, how is losing 80% of my tongue help my videos be more engaging? That makes no common sense to me. Like, losing my tongue should make it harder to listen to me. And parents tell me it actually, because it's an adult voice that doesn't sound threatening. And so my kids love it. And it's like, awesome. Okay, that's God. Like, so yeah, no, I appreciate you saying that, because it's like God can take something that should be a hindrance and makes it better than if my tongue wasn't like this, kids wouldn't like me as much. so that just blows me away. So I appreciate that.
So tell me about the writing of the song "These Walls" that went so viral.
Yeah. So I wrote the song before cancer. I wrote 80% of it before cancer. And it was we had just gotten married. My wife got me this really beat up piano. She bought it and then like beat it up and painted it blue. I loved it. It was like a wedding gift. And so I was sitting down at the piano, and I don't like writing worship songs, in the sense that I don't like to sit down and be like, hey God, I'm going to write you a worship song, like forcing it. What I was taught is you just worship, and with no agenda, just worship God. And then if it becomes a catchy song, then awesome. And so I sat down and I thought, what do I want to say to God right now? I just started playing some chords, and I just started saying, you are greater than these walls I'm circling. You are stronger. You are bigger. I started just saying and singing to God a prayer of what I wanted to say. And, I started saying, this is my song. This is my dare to worship you, even with these walls still standing there. Because I love the story of Jericho and the walls falling. And I love the idea that they had to shout. They had to shout for victory before the walls even came down. And so I start seeing these words. It's just a prayer. And my wife pops her head around the corner and she's like, what is that? Keep writing that. She's kind of, I call her my A&R person. She knows when a song is going to be a hit or whatever. And she's like, that's a song, Jason. I was like, oh, cool. So, I wrote like the verses and the chorus, and that was it. And then just kind of tucked it away. Didn't know who it was for. Didn't know, when I'd ever release it. Then I went through cancer and realized, that song was kind of written to me, for this time. And after cancer, that's when I wrote the bridge. The final part is, even in the suffering, I will sing. And even in the questioning, I will believe that you are good, that you are good to me. So I will keep singing. And so that part was written after cancer, after living through the walls. And then, I sang the song, and now, people are still singing it today in churches, and it's just really encouraging.
What is your life like now, having gone through recovery for the most part and still going through recovery?
Yeah. So I was dealing with, it's interesting because sometimes PTSD doesn't hit you till like long after. It's almost like I was in, my body was almost like in shock. And as soon as like, oh, you can run again, you can sing again, you can dance again, you can speak again. I went like 100 miles an hour, and I was just doing it and didn't have time to let my brain or my body process everything that had gone on. So we're about a year and a half to 2 years. I was just like booking it. I was singing. I was making albums again. I was preaching. I was traveling. I was just happy to be alive and doing what I love to do, and seeing people be impacted by it. And then as life slowed down, realized my brain was like, hey, can we talk? Can we process what you went through? And then I just got hit super hard with depression, suicidal thoughts, which was all contributed to the PTSD, nightmares, night terrors, just reliving everything in my brain. And so that was last year. It got really dark, really hard. And so I had to start doing some treatments for PTSD and all of that. And that's been like really helpful. So it's like, even though my body physically felt ready, my brain hadn't processed everything. And I never stopped to let it process everything. So those treatments kind of finished up earlier this year. And there's still a few things I'm still doing some treatments, but now it's like the fog has cleared. My brain, my body, my mind has been able to like process what happened, and now I'm able to just move forward, and I'm doing my tribe. And it's funny because I never planned to do my tribe. Like that was never a plan. I was gonna like keep preaching and do music and stuff for people, and travel, and I was writing like a Broadway style musical and doing all that kind of stuff, just telling the story of Jesus in different ways. And then COVID hit, and had to cancel all my speaking gigs, right? And had to like couldn't do anything, and so then I saw a need. I was like, all of these churches are having to switch to online services, but they're uploading separate videos, one for kids, one for adults. Most of them are doing nothing for teenagers. But here we are, families are stuck at home, and we're making them watch videos separately. Like the parents are in one room watching church and the kids are in a different room. But I like, this is the perfect time to have church as a family, like come together. And I saw this need. Someone needs to make Bible videos that a kid and their parent could watch together, both laugh and have fun, and both could learn. And I didn't see anyone doing that. So within 2 weeks, I launched My Tribe. And the funniest thing is I'd never, like early March, never had thought of My Tribe, never planned to do videos. 2 weeks later, I launched My Tribe, and now I'm doing it. So I think when you see a need and God gives you a passion to do something, and you look at what's in my hand. Well, I love video. I've done video editing my whole life. I love editing. I love speaking. Okay, so I can't travel anymore. I think what a lot of people did is they looked at COVID and they looked at what did COVID take from me. And
Right.
when you focus if all you focus on is what did I lose, then you become, if I may say it, a loser. That's how you identify. You label yourself a loser because you look at everything you've lost and you think I'm a loser. And I didn't look at that. I was like, yeah, I can't do speaking gigs anymore. I had just written a little book. I just put a CD together. And then 2 weeks later, can't sell that. Can't sell that where I go places. So how am I going to make money? Yeah, I lost a lot of things. I lost all my income, all of that. But I looked at what's in my hand. I do videos. I grew up my whole life. I was a children's pastor, a youth pastor, and I've been a young adults pastor, and I preach to adults. So I know how to make a sermon that a kid and a grandparent will both love. So what's in my hand, that's what I'm going to do. And within 2 weeks, we launched My Tribe. So some people think like, has he been doing My Tribe for years? It's like, no. I looked at what was in my hand, and I didn't expect My Tribe to go the way it's going. We have hundreds of families are now like a part of it, and I was just doing what I could do with what God gave me in the moment.
It's awesome for anyone who is curious. Talk a little bit about where someone can find My Tribe and participate in it.
Yeah. If you go to mytribe.watch, it's basically we created a streaming platform, and every week, my wife and I, we release a new Bible episode, and we pack it with special effects and comedy and really, really powerful gold nuggets, lessons that kids, teenagers, and adults need to hear. And we make it very family oriented so that your family once a week can have a Bible study together. And then we include age-specific Bible worksheets and family games and family activities. And then I actually feature families and kids in the after show. So kids will send me their artwork, or families will send me like pictures of them doing a family activity. And then in the next episode, we put it in the video. And so it's not just me making videos, like here you go, and me not interacting. It's very interactive. And so we almost became like this digital tribe of families who love God and love our family and want to see our families grow closer to each other and grow closer to God. And so it's this interactive community where we're commenting and talking with each other back and forth. They're in my videos. I'm in their living room. And and another way for people who want some samples is, which is how we met, on my Facebook page, facebook.com/JasonDavidMusic or @JasonDavidMusic. And I upload, same thing with YouTube, I upload short clips so people can kind of see it for free a little bit, what kind of lessons we do. And if they're interested, they can go to it. And I'll even make a discount. If they type the word Evan in discount code, you get 50% off the first month. I'll just make a little code, and it'll be your name, Evan. So there you go. But I don't necessarily be here to like pitch anything, but rather just to say like, what is in your hand? Like, don't look at what you've lost. Don't look at what life has taken from you. Don't focus on what life has robbed you of, but rather look around. What can you do with what God has given you, and just do it. Move forward.
Yeah. And you're cool to pitch, bro. I brought it up.
Okay.
No, it's incredible. My family and I, we love it. So well done, man.
Thank you.
When you said you've only started it this season,
yeah,
I didn't know that. Like, you started off and it was good. It wasn't and I'm sure you're only going to get better. but normally when people start something off, it's not as good as what yours is. And so, man,
Thank you.
we've enjoyed it, man. I just want you to know that. Tell me, let's end on a good note. Let's talk about what happened, how your wife saved your life.
Yeah.
And I want to hear that story.
Yeah. So remember how you and I were kind of going off about how like Christians don't always know what to say.
Yeah.
And so that's where I want to pick up where we left off with that. So my wife comes into the room. I'm pale. I'm in pain. My phone, I've typed easy ways to die. And she can tell, she can look in my eyes and see like, I'm not okay. That I just look defeated and done. And she doesn't know what to say. And I think many times in those moments, people don't know what to say, but they say something anyway. Peter did this a lot, right? Peter's like, we should build a temple. And it says, while Peter was talking, God interrupted him, right? Like, Peter will say, like, Jesus, I don't think you should die. And then Jesus is like, get behind me, Satan. Like, sometimes even Peter struggled with this. You don't know what to say. So then he would just say something. And my wife didn't have the words to say. So she didn't say anything. She looked at me and she showed up. And that's the first thing I wanted to say is a hero to me. A hero is someone who shows up. Because, you know, I remember 9/11. I was in junior high when 9/11 happened. And, you know, that forever shaped, like, you know, our country and everything that happened next. And all these firefighters, these first responders showed up. And we called them heroes. Not every single one of them went into a burning building. Not every single one of them pulled someone out of the rubble. Yet we call them all heroes because they simply showed up when others would not have. So to me, a hero is someone who shows up, even if it means they just show up and they listen. And I think people don't understand the power of showing up. People think I have to show up and speak up. No, you just showing up and being quiet says a lot. And my wife showed up to be by my side. She was working 2 jobs to help pay for the medical bills. She'd wake up at 4 a.m. to go to one job, get off that job, go to another job, come to the hospital at 9 p.m., stay with me till midnight, go home, get 4 hours of sleep, do it again. And during those 3 hours, like, she just gave me all her attention. So in that moment, she shows up, which is step number 1, to show up for people. And she sees that I'm hurting, and she sees I'm not okay. She doesn't know what to do. She doesn't have the words to say. So she decides to sing. And my wife, she'll tell you, she's not a singer. It's not what she does. And, but it's all she knew to do. Because she knew nothing I can say is going to help him. So she starts singing. She starts singing prayers over me. She starts taking the melody of old hymns. Come thou fount of every blessing. But her and I can never remember the words to that hymn. So she starts making up her own words. And she starts saying, you are good, God. You are good, God. You are good, God. And I remember what she sang. Like, in all the chaos in my brain, I remember what she sang. And she started pacing the room, and her words started echoing down the hallway. It was a beautiful reverb. And she didn't get the words right, and she didn't hit all the right notes, and that didn't matter. And I think sometimes people think, I've got to say the right thing. I've got to hit the right notes. I got to be perfect for someone in pain. And you don't. She showed up, and it was imperfect and absolutely beautiful. And in that moment, it felt like peace. If peace was a person, it like floated through the window into the hospital room. And all of a sudden, the anxiety and everything calmed down, the noises drowned out, and like my eyes got heavy. I hadn't slept in 3 days. My eyes got heavy. And for the first time in 3 days, I started drifting off to sleep, and like the presence of peace was in that room. And I believe Jesus is the personification of peace. If peace was a person, that is Jesus. And like, I felt for the first time during that dark season, I felt God's presence and peace. And it wasn't because of me. And that's why I want people to understand, like, my prayers weren't doing anything. I didn't feel like my prayers were doing anything, but her prayers did something. And it reminds me of when those friends take their paralytic friend to Jesus. It wasn't his faith that healed him; it was the faith of his friends. That's what Jesus says. And if I'm remembering it correctly, they put him down to the roof, and I was not being able to pray or worship God. I didn't have anything to say to God. I didn't have any words, but she came in and she began to sing over me. And I drifted off to sleep, and I slept for 15 hours. I woke up the next day, and I was finally in my right mind. And I was like, you know what? I'm not going to give up. I still don't know why I'm not going to give up. Maybe partly it's because I'm not going to give up because of my wife. But I'm going to get through this. And maybe one day God can transform this. I didn't feel like there was any guarantee that he would. And now I'm living on the opposite side of that. And I'm like, he more than just transformed it. And he took something that should have debilitated me, something that should have prevented me. And somehow he's even used that as a strength, as a in my weakness, he is strong, right? In my not having a tongue made out of my arm, a tongue that cannot go past my teeth. I cannot stick my tongue out. I have a giant lisp, and somehow he's used that to now kids are more willing to listen to me because of that. I mean, that's just like, I can't take any credit for that. No one could ever strategize, oh yeah, just like remove your tongue and you'll be more popular with families. Like that's just God transforming something so dark and bringing light to it. And I'm forever grateful for that. And how the story continues from here now is, I've been told so many times that I sound like a cartoon character. Well, my wife has actually been building this app, and it's an app that I think is really going to bless the world. It's going to help families with conflict resolution, and it's going to help kids understand what to do with their angry emotions. And she's building this app, and the main character is this really cute cartoon llama. And the idea is save the drama for the llama. The llama is going to help these kids like deal with their angry emotions and not let the emotions control them. And so I'm going to be the voice of this cartoon llama. And it's just so funny because so many parents have been telling me like, hey, you sound like a cartoon character, and they have no idea. Actually, I'm going to be the voice of a cartoon character. And it's just crazy that God can take something that I thought was a hindrance. It's something that I almost stopped. I almost was like, I'll just make instrumental music because I thought this was the thing people didn't want to hear. And God was like, would you just trust me? Just open up your mouth. What's in your hand? What's in your mouth? Just use it. And I can do things with it that doesn't make sense to you, but it's going to bless families. So now I am going to be a cartoon character that's going to help kids with their angry emotions. And we're going to teach Jesus kingdom principles. And like, so whatever thing for your audience, whatever thing that has been holding you back, it might be the very thing that God wants to use. So like, we really are left without an excuse. God can use a donkey. He can use a guy with no tongue. God can use you. And just don't give up and allow God to use you.
I like to end each show with the same 3 questions, but because I like you and I feel like I can ask you some funny, ridiculous questions, I'm going to actually ask you a few more than just 3.
Yeah.
So for one, give me your best Gene Simmons tongue impression.
Oh man,
I'm totally joking. I know you can't because you just said you can't stick your tongue out.
Yeah. Yeah, I wouldn't even. I've literally tried. I like at the most my tongue will come out. So there you go.
What is kissing like now?
Yeah. Not gonna lie, I missed that aspect of it. It's just lips.
Just lips.
Because you can't stick your tongue out your mouth. So that's a bummer.
Right. And then I was gonna ask this earlier, but it sounds like you already did. I asked if food tastes differently now.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's the question. Does food taste differently?
Oh, Oh, you know what's weird? At first, chocolate tasted like nothing, and applesauce tasted gross, and mint tasted like heaven. But now, um, even though it's like an 80%, 90%, I don't know like the difference. So now, like everything tastes normal now, which is
Okay.
I'm really grateful for. We take food for granted, and the thing is, like, everything is about food. If you go on a date, you're gonna have food. If you hang out with friends, you're gonna have food. If you go to the movies, you're gonna have food. And when I lost that for a year, dude, I will never take food for granted. And I think people need to like be more grateful when they pray for their food, because once you lose that for a year, like you will understand, like it's really hard to eat something that tastes good and still be angry. Like food, even when you're depressed, food guarantees that 3 times a day you'll have a smile on your face. Like food is amazing. And we take it for granted. And it's like, man, now my wife and I, we don't take dates for granted. We don't take food for granted. And so yeah, I feel like everything tastes normal now. Chocolate tastes like chocolate, and I love it. And you know, I just have to be careful with like rice and chips and stuff that is like small and can poke me. But other than that, like I don't focus on what I've lost. I focus on what I've
Right. That's awesome, man. What is your favorite food other than mint chocolate chip?
Dude, it's mint. It's Moose Tracks. Have you ever had Moose Tracks? Moose
Heck
Tracks
yeah.
ice cream, dude. It's this new thing I do. I combine extreme Moose Tracks, which is all chocolate and fudge, with the mint ice cream Moose Tracks, and then I throw a brownie in there. It's really not good for me. I should stop. Other than that, I love white queso. Like
Oh yeah.
you know, like I love Mexican. I always love Mexican food, but
So how do you have the white queso without chips?
flour tortilla. Yeah. You
Oh,
take
that's
the
smart.
tortilla.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, man, now I'm hungry, man.
Dude,
Yeah.
I'll go have Mexican food just because of this conversation now.
And California burritos also. That's where you put French fries in it.
Oh,
Yeah. Yeah. Do they have California burritos in states that aren't California? I don't know,
I
but
guess
like
not. I'm Oklahoma.
Oklahoma. So a California burrito is where you put French fries into whatever. If you call it California fries, it's because instead of chips, you did French fries. And so I love that too. French fries with guacamole, sour cream, pico de gallo,
Mm.
cheese, lots of cheese. I love cheese, man. Ice cream and cheese. This is not a great health podcast right now.
That's one of the subjects we talk about. But
Yeah.
so, what is the biggest lie in self-talk you had or currently struggle with?
The biggest one was thinking that I needed to be silent because my voice was embarrassing. And you know, if I can just call out some Christians right now.
Go for it.
Christians can be the most quick to judge people. But the assumptions that Christians jump to. So they'll see a guy with a lisp. And dude, I would get some of the most brutal comments on Facebook and YouTube from people like from all this stuff. And like they'll be like, this guy with his lisp. And sometimes I'll just reply, I have a lisp because of tongue cancer. And I'll just leave it at that. And then they'll delete their post immediately. Most of the times I just ignore it. And it's like, I'm not going to change anyone's mind. But it's like, these are so-called Christians who didn't take the time to go look at my website. It's pretty obvious I have cancer. Like, just go look at my scars, but rather will just jump to the assumption. And those Christians are the reason why I almost didn't do what I do, because I was afraid of the judgment I would get for my voice. Christians are the ones preventing Moses, not Pharaoh. Christians are the ones. It was the Israelites complaining to Moses that made Moses want to give up. It wasn't Pharaoh. Moses was more afraid of his own people. So Christians, listen to me. We are our biggest enemy. We are the reason pastors want to step down. It's not the world. The world isn't the reason pastors want to give up. It's our own Christian brothers and sisters who are doing more damage to the church than the world is doing. And so we need to have more grace, be more like Jesus. And if a guy has a lisp, go look at his website before you assume things. Or look at all the millions of comments of other parents who are loving what I'm doing. So I think Christians, I wish, were known for their love and not for what they're against. That's what Jesus said. They will know you because of your love, but that's not what we're known for anymore. So
what brings you peace?
Going for walks by the water with my wife.
What's the best decision you've ever made?
I think I'm supposed to say it was giving my life to Jesus.
Well, okay. Besides that.
But I was 5 when I did that. I was at a puppet show. And I didn't understand what I was doing. So I think it was when I finally was old enough to understand what I was doing. I would have to say marrying my wife. As it might sound cliche, but like her and I, people don't understand her and I do this together. We write the episodes together. We've always written sermons together. And she's the one who like there was this moment, bro, where I was in rehab and they were not treating me right. They were taking stitches out when they weren't supposed to. They were putting the wrong medicine on my arm and it was deteriorating it. So my wife, and I don't have time to go into the whole story, but she broke me out of that rehab. She literally broke me out of that rehab, learned how to do everything they were doing, bought this stuff on Amazon, took me home, and did it herself. So like, she's incredible. And so that would have to be the best decision.
That's awesome. Jason, man, thank you so much for coming on today. Where Jason David Music is where people.com can find you. And then also where can they find more about My Tribe?
Yeah. Actually, jasondavidmusic.com, it does exist as a website, but it when COVID-19 hit, I kind of paused that. So it's not updated right now. Rather, I switched everything over to My Tribe. So the website is mytribe.watch. But on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, it's at Jason David Music, or youtube.com/Jason David Music, facebook.com/Jason David Music. So that's how they can interact with me. But the streaming video platform where they can be a part of our weekly episodes is mytribe.watch.
Awesome. Jason, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you, Evan.
Take care.